Welcome back, everyone, to the first episode of Season 4 of Insights from the Couch, Mental Health at Midlife. We've got a great episode today. We're going to be talking about all the dark stuff and the White Lotus, the psychological behind the scenes, sex, power, and betrayal, the twisted psychology of White Lotus. We could not resist because Laura and I are both addicted to the show. So we're going to dive in and talk about what's going on behind the scenes with these characters, or at least our take as therapists. And we want to hear from you too. Your thoughts, your questions, your comments, what's going to happen in the show. So please reach out to us at info@insightsfromthecouch.org. I am so excited to dig into this and talk about all the fucked up stuff going on the White Lotus. So let's get into it. And you guys remember to go to our website, insightsfromthecouch.org. We are going to have a download for you on toxic relationships and power dynamics, how to recognize them, how to manage them, and how to get out of them. So don't forget to check that out after we dish on the White Lotus. All right, let's talk about it because there's a lot to get into.
I'm so into it. I love Mike White's writing. I love these people. I become so obsessed on the granular details of these humans.
We
obsessed. All know somebody like every one of them. Yeah, well, most of them, I guess.
Well, okay, just before we get into the psychological dynamics, I don't like this season as much as last season.
It's a slow build, right?
Very, very
It's
slow.
an agonizingly slow build.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I love the Ratcliffe family.
Yes. So let's go there first because they are so complicated. And of course, the brother incest thing, I want to dig into that a little bit, but just even the dynamics of the family. And it was modeled after, like Mike White told them to watch Southern Charm on Bravo, which you've probably never seen, but I watched.
I've seen it. I've seen episodes of it.
Okay. So he told the father to model this guy, T-Rav, who's just a complete douchebag. Like this politician who has a string of sexual assault allegations and baby mamas. Yeah. Yeah. So that, because the main actor is British and he
I've heard of he pulls him off really convincingly.
Yeah. Okay. So what stands out to you about the family other than the fact that the brother's giving the other brother a hand job?
I mean, that's actually came out of left field for me a little bit, even though I don't know why it should have, because it was foreshadowed quite well. I just, you know what? The Lachlan character who ends up giving the hand job, I saw him very much and I don't know how many, I'm assuming anybody listening to this with any interest has seen all of the seasons. Yeah. But the first season, there was a brother who was kind of the good guy, who was seemingly so innocent and outside the family drama. And I thought that this kid was that initially. And now I'm seeing him as something quite different.
I agree. I think he's actually got the sexual deviance issues in the sense of incest.
Some real deep pathos there.
Absolutely. What I thought at the beginning is that the daughter was that character, the one who was not corrupted by power and money, that she wanted to be, in the Buddhist monastery and sort of eschew all of the social bullshit her family imposes on her. But I picked up on Lachlan seeming to be very sexually interested, I think potentially even in his sister and his brother.
I think you're right on that. I initially thought that he looked at his brother like, oh, you poor unfortunate douchebag. But now that's all shifted.
Yeah, but see, I didn't think that okay, here's my take, and then you give me your take.
Yeah.
I think from the beginning, and even in the first episode, first of all, I was like, this family is so weird. And not just the fact that they're superficial and ridiculous, which they're that too. But I just thought they are so messed up. And there was so much sexual overtone from the jump. With the way the brother was preoccupied, Saxon was preoccupied with what's the sister's name again? I can't believe I watched Piper. Thank you. Preoccupied with whether or not Piper's had sex, picking her up. I mean, my brother and I don't touch each other. It's just weird. And then when Saxon went in to the bathroom, that first naked scene, Lachlan's gaze, I got the feeling that for Saxon, it was just like, whatever, I don't give a shit. I'm going to walk around freely in front of my brother. But I felt like Lachlan had a sexual gaze even at his brother's body in that first episode. And now what I think is that Saxon is the, finance bra douche. Yes, that everyone loves to hate, right? He's the guy we all know, one of those guys. Yes. Just totally detestable. But I don't think he has the same real sexual. I think he wanted to like bond with the brother and help him get laid. But I think Lachlan could turn out to be, I don't know where this is going to go. And the crazy thing is, like, by the time this episode airs on Wednesday, there will be another episode out that we can't talk about today.
I know, we can't talk about. And, I think that this just shows that I wasn't even really paying attention to Lachlan that much.
Yeah.
I kind of saw him as like a non-entity till he started like really throwing them back at like the full moon party and looks at the brother and said like, one day I'm going to own you.
Oh,
and I'm like, what the fuck?
What'd you make of that?
I was like, oh, wow. Like, you want to take this guy down. You want to bring him down a peg somehow.
Competition.
Rivalry. Like, you see yourself somehow as stronger than this guy. Like, you have his number. And somehow he just seems more, maybe it's predatory. Maybe it's like a little sociopathy, but he seems quite comfortable with himself. Whereas Saxon is quite uncomfortable with himself. And like when this whole thing happens, he just like unravels like
Right. Which I found his portrayal of that whole aspect very believable. Just how, first of all, I've never been on ecstasy, but I can imagine on drugs that, we're biological animals. I'm sure all sorts of things, like you insert another person, your body's going to respond. So I don't have that much trouble seeing how that could go. But I do think it speaks to another possibility with Lachlan, like giving the hand job, that maybe it's not so much that he's sexually attracted, although I really do feel like I've seen those longing gazes, although who knows with Mike White's writing, but maybe it's more about Lachlan saying, this is how I can destroy this brother. He will never recover. And I don't care. Maybe he does have some sociopathy and he just doesn't care, or some deviance. He's missing a chip, if you will. And he knows that like the one thing he could do that will destroy this man's sense of self is to have him live with the fact that his brother gave him an orgasm.
Oh my God. It's just, but then with his sister, and I like more to come there because now they're in the monastery together to spend
I was
the
like,
night.
Is he gonna like make a move on her? But
I mean,
but if it's power and like ruining, because he does seem to really care about her,
genuinely care.
Then that would not apply. But if it's more sexual attraction to one's siblings, then it could. I know that was my first thought. I'm like, you're gonna spend the night? Oh my God, what's he gonna do to you?
Right?
Like put on a girdle before you go to bed. Protect your genitals.
I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, so there's like more questions than answers there. Like, was that just a total one-off? But it doesn't seem to bother Lachlan at all that this went down.
And I thought this was fascinating because, you don't really see a lot of sibling incest in TV. I mean, I can't think of a time Flowers in the Attic. How could I forget that? I mean, that was made into a movie. Did you read those books?
I watched that movie. I don't remember incest in the movie though.
Oh my God. Okay. Well,
was it between the older siblings when they're stuck in the attic?
I think it's between the olders and the youngers. It's so funny. I think it's V.C. Andrews. When I was young,
so dark.
I read every one of those books, and shocker, they were my favorites. Not because of incest, just because it was like dark and complicated. Yeah, and that's my thing.
The grandmother poisoning the kids in the attic.
Yes, it was so good. But, it speaks to an interesting point. I don't think we often see two brothers. I can't think of a time I've seen two brothers in an incest case on television or in literature.
Or how about the younger brother dominate? I hope I'm not ruining. This is a spoiler alert episode. So like if you want to see all these things, don't listen. But there's a scene in The Brutalist where this guy who's the benefactor of the architect, he takes advantage of him and like sodomizes him while he's drunk. And it's you get the sense that it's not entirely sexual. You get the sense that it's an act of dominance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you get the
Power.
same sense a little bit with Lachlan.
Yeah, and another possibility along those lines is that the brother, to your point about you didn't even really pay attention to Lachlan, I think that's the dynamic in the family.
Yes.
Right? Everybody else is so dominant in their own way, and he just sort of fades into the wallpaper. So it's also possible that this kid's just looking for ways to fit in, ways to be seen, ways to find intimacy, and they've taken this really virulent pathological form. And it wouldn't be totally shocking because sometimes when incest arises in families, it's a function of enmeshment, of an abusive family. Yeah. And even though they present and think of themselves as this ideal Southern family, their dynamics, all of them, are extremely toxic.
Yeah, you think the mom's like swallowing like benzodiazepines. Well, now her husband is. I mean, the family's about to implode. And the biggest concern that the mother seems to have is like, will Lachlan go to like UNC Chapel Hill or Duke?
I know. Or will Piper stay in Thailand and ruin her prospects? It's such a throwback to like the Bronte days, Jane Eyre and Sense and Sensibility in a much more toxic form. This mother's living out of an old playbook where like your children have to be socially strategically placed.
And she's so obsessed with it. And I mean, that's the thing you get is like how fragile her identity is. Like when she contemplates like not having money, she's like, I'm not sure I'd want to live. And I mean, that's honest. Like she thinks that would be the absolute death of her identity. Because I mean, she's constantly talking about like our values and people like us.
Right. This is where I have to say, and I love Mike White because I'm a big Survivor fan and he was on Survivor. And I do think there's so much great stuff in these shows. I've watched every episode of every season and I can't wait to dissect it afterwards.
Yeah.
But I do have a criticism of his writing, personally. I think a lot of it is very heavy-handed and on the nose.
Well, it is. And I don't know what, it kind of makes it fun. Like even the names, like I don't know if you've caught this, but like the character names are very like Dickens style. Like, Leslie Bibb's character is named Kate Bohr. She's the boring one. Bore. And it's like, so I just think it is very on the nose. And I kind of think that's the kind of fun about it. And then it jumps into the fact that Tim realizes, the husband, like maybe I have to pull off a murder-suicide. Maybe it's not even compassionate to leave this woman behind.
Yeah. No, I actually believed that second suicide I really bought into. I thought for a minute like it happened.
I almost think that maybe he has to kill his son too. Like I'm not sure Saxon could take the ego death of not being the protein shake heir to a big, like, I don't know what kind of fortune they have.
I don't know. I think he has time to rebound. I don't think Saxon can take the ego death of having gotten a hand job from his brother.
I think he's very fragile in lots of ways.
Yeah, we might have to kill him off for that alone. But let me just be clear. I like the over-the-top and on-the-nose satirical component of the characters.
Like there was another moment, I think this was the first time you said to me that you didn't love this, was the moment that Carrie Coon's character who plays Lori, sees her friends and she knows they're talking shit about her. And she just like has like a primal scream and like weeps. And it's like, we didn't need to see this to know how that impacted her.
Right. And not in that way. Yes. Some of it's just too, let the characters be more subtle in their dialogue because you've drawn the characters so well. But okay. So before we move on to, cause I'm dying to talk about the three female friends.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to say about this tragic North Carolina family? And do you think, I mean, I could care less who dies. I find that to be the least interesting. I know it's the conceit of the show, but it's like, who cares? To me.
I do find it funny how the gun is being passed around. Like,
Yeah.
we know the gun is used. We know a gun is used. Like,
Right.
we don't know
it's
who's
like
going to die.
to the max.
Totally. I mean, I am surprised just from like a human level that Tim is even like standing after drinking as much and like popping all of these like benzos that he can even form a coherent sentence.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Or that she can go through withdrawal if she's taking benzodiazepines daily. You know, benzodiazepines and alcohol are the only two drugs that can kill you.
Yeah, seizures. Yeah, she seems like not as annoyed as you would expect, or as like panic stricken as you would expect a person who really lost their pills like that.
And so this is where it goes back into the caricature, and we just sort of have to accept that. But it seems like it can't be the dad who dies by suicide, because that's
too obvious.
It's too obvious, right? And I feel like it's going to be, I don't know anyone's name. Who's the like sweet little Thai couple, the unrequited love? I could see him dying.
Yeah, he seems very like sacrificial lamb, right?
Yes, definitely.
Like he doesn't know he's surrounded by vipers. Like they're always like, you know, showing those two like thug bodyguards. And he's like, he wants to be a body. He's never going to be a bodyguard, but he's going to get offed by one of them probably.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and you know what else I wanted to just say? Because I think it's interesting, and we were chatting about this before we get too away from the incest thing, that Westermark effect, because I was trying to understand what are these dynamics. I will say in all my years of therapy, doing trauma therapy, so many clients who have been through sexual abuse, incest in their families, but not siblings. I've never had a client. Have you? Like brother,
abuse.
sister?
Yes, I have. Oh my God.
Did. I have. Wait, I have too.
I have. And I have.
You know what I haven't had? Sorry, I have. You know what I haven't had that I'm thinking of? Two brothers.
Brothers.
I haven't had a brother perpetrate another brother. I've had lots of brother, sister.
I've had that at like, I don't even want to talk about it. It's too much.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it.
Okay.
I've had some wacky stuff. Let's just say that.
Yeah. But I do think, again, it's not something we see in pop culture. Obviously, it goes on.
It goes on.
Right. But trying to understand how that happens. And obviously, there are multiple reasons. But this Westermark effect, this anthropologist in the 1890s discovered that there's a genetic reason, an evolutionary reason that kids who grow up in the early years together typically don't develop a sexual attraction to one another, even if they're not biologically related. And it's more than just, I used to think it was the way you're conditioned. Like you learn, this is my brother, right? So you just don't think of the person that way. But actually, it's really a genetic thing that we just don't develop attraction to people we grow up with when we're kids, because if there's incest among siblings, it can lead to major genetic problems, and it's not as advantageous for procreation.
Oh no, absolutely. You know, but I want to just say that this is my own gut feeling. I'm not saying that there's even research behind this, but I do feel like when there's incest in like a way that's perpetrated over a long period of time, or even when it's perpetrated in adulthood, which I've seen.
Yeah.
Wow. I always feel like with the individual perpetrating, there's like a decent amount of sociopathy at play.
Interesting.
There's just something off. It is a little bit of an act of dominance. It's a little bit of like this sexual liability where they can kind of take advantage of anything. Brother, sister, partner.
I think that's a viable scenario. I just don't know if I think that's the only scenario.
Oh, no, it's not the only. I just see it a lot.
I also think that if you're abused by a parent or a step parent, then we know that kids will then act out that abuse often on their siblings. But I don't think that's the case with Lachlan. And also, it may be a result of the fact, again, in a very pathological way, but that he feels totally disconnected and he's trying to find ways not only to get power and dominance, but to be close to these siblings. I suspect that's not it. It's more deviant, but I think sometimes the incest can come from like a very unhealthy enmeshment that just doesn't set the right boundaries. Yeah, depending on what's going on in the executive subsystem.
I think you're absolutely right. And I also want to say, because we'd be remiss not to, is that, you know, incest is one of these intergenerational transmission processes. Yep. So like if it's in your family for multiple generations, it tends to get passed down like a bad habit.
And if it's in your family at all, it can get passed down, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And same thing with suicidality. I think sometimes people don't realize that we're seeing this father in the Ratcliffe family who it's a situational crisis that he doesn't know how to tell his wife. Not only will his wife not be okay, she will probably hate him for it. I mean, he's really shit the bed, and that may prompt him to take his life. I don't think it will, but he's definitely contemplating it. But for a lot of people, suicidality is more endogenous, meaning, you know, it's genetically passed. It's part of the brain structure. And I think a lot of people have trouble understanding that. Some people's brains tell them all the time, like, you should really die. It's better if you're not here. And people who don't have that sometimes are very hard on people. How could you do this to people in your life? And you just really don't know what people go through.
100%. And, you know, the thing that we haven't talked about is just the capitalistic grind that this family is a part of.
Yeah.
And this class system where, you know, you do a $10 million deal with a buddy, but that's like that's the price of being in that class.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm waiting for the credit card to stop working.
I know.
I'm waiting for somebody to go like, ma'am, we tried to process your massage, but
I'm
like
surprised
we can't get
that
the
hasn't
Amex
happened
to work.
Okay, so let's talk about the 3 female friends because
love it.
It's fascinating. And I think this is one so many of us women at our age are really relating to, you know, because they're a little bit older, even though they're younger than we are. They're, you know, right? Aren't they around 40 years old, I think? To me, this is the best writing of the show. Really showing the competitive nature of female relationships for some people. And it's fascinating to watch this train coming off the tracks with these 3. What's your take?
So many takes. Like, I mean, it's like this old friend group that, I mean, everybody's trying. I mean, they're all trying to look great, except for Laurie's character, who's like obviously been through a lot. So she's not in the same league as her like rich Texas friend. Played, you know, Kate. And
but
then
she's
Jacqueline,
wealthy. She's successful.
She's wealthy, but she's like a New Yorker. And, you know, I actually listened. And if anybody like really wants to go deep into the White Lotus, they have a whole podcast.
Yeah.
And like I heard her talk about her character, and they said that they made like really intentional details, like that she was always a shade off with her clothes.
Yeah. She doesn't have the panache, but she's not like,
and she even her nail color is wrong. Yeah. Like that was all intentional.
She doesn't put the same amount of effort. She doesn't dress as well. She's frumpy compared to the other 2.
She's frumpy.
But she's not of a different socioeconomic status. That's what I was pointing out.
Right. But I think all of her inadequacies come into sharp relief around those 2. And then even the Texan feels her inadequacies in sharp relief to Jacqueline, who's like the famous person. So they're just, nobody's feeling good enough. You know, here they are supposed to be friends having this great like time together. I mean, I don't even know if Jacqueline's feeling good enough because her boyfriend her husband isn't texting her.
Well, I think Jacqueline is actually the one who's most feeling not good enough.
Because she's constantly, she's the one that has that piece of like being constantly on the take for male attention.
Right. And that is the biggest gaping hole sign of not feeling good enough, if there's ever been one. I mean, you're in your 40s, whatever age you are, and you're so desperate for male attention that you have to sleep with this like Russian
that you've been pushing on your friend
right.
as if that she needs to get laid and have a great time. And then you just swoop in at the last minute and like grab him up.
But that was the part that I found the least surprising. Like we've all had some version of that where like a friend one-ups you. And this is what I thought was so interesting about the psychology of it that we've chatted about, that women have more of an indirect aggression. And we know that we're all comparative, right? We're always trying to judge how well we're doing by comparing ourselves to those in our social group. But that men tend to be outright aggressive. Like if there's a problem, men will like have a fist fight.
What the fuck you doing, dude? Like, and just get right in your face.
It's called out or it's enacted physically or verbally aggressively. Women tend to be indirect and covert, and that actually the way women try to exert like alpha status and dominance, right? One-upping each other is through backstabbing, backhanded compliments, which we know are insults, taking the guy that you wanted to have, and I don't even care about him, but I can have him like that, and you can't even score him, and my needs are, right? It's this, so I just see them power playing each other constantly. And that also the triangulation of which so many women do, let's be honest. And it has various degrees of meanness to it, that you leave the table and it's like, oh, Laura, that outfit, I wonder if she's going through a hard time. She doesn't look like herself today. Did she gain a little weight? Obviously, I would never say any of this.
She drinking too much?
Right. Her eyes look puffy.
She's aging quickly.
Yes. That is all a way to exert dominance. And
this is why women don't want to be friends with other women sometimes. It's like they just have been bitten by this too many times. And there is no safety often in groups of women.
Right. But this also makes me reflect on how fortunate I've been, because I just do not have friends like this for the most part. I've known people and I don't want them in my life, but like my closest friends, like even growing up, other than in middle school, I had an incident and it was like handled. But in high school, even, I just don't feel like my friends were like this. And I don't have any friends who are like this now.
I know. I mean, I've certainly had friends that were like this, and have gradually
pulled away.
I mean, I don't tolerate that in my life.
Neither.
Like if I sniff that out, I'm like out of there very quickly.
Me too.
But in this situation with these three friends, like they're like historical friends.
Yeah.
And I'm just really curious too what you thought about the moment where they're sitting by the pool and like Lori does her best to confront Jacqueline.
Yeah, I love
like, hey, we haven't changed. Like this stuff went on in the 10th grade. Like you're still the same. The moment that like just blew me away was that Jacqueline just absolutely dismissed it. Like, that's not even, you're like so far off base. Like the gaslighting of like, you don't see what you see. You don't know what you know.
I know.
This is like, not happening.
What?
He just came over. Like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit. We all know what happened.
And she also knows that nobody's going to believe that and doesn't care. I mean, Jacqueline is that creature who is so narcissistic, so egoic. She's going to get what she wants no matter what, whatever makes her feel good and fills her up, she's going to do no matter how it impacts others. What I liked was that Lori confronted her. I loved that. Yeah. And that she called it out. And I was not surprised by Jacqueline's reaction. And then is it Kate? What's the other friend?
Kate.
Okay. Yeah, I always want to call them by their actress names.
I know.
But she was like, I thought one of the parts I loved the most about Kate, I feel like I've been this person, but I found that to be so human and relatable. And then they get back to the pool and they're splashing and throwing up their tops and she's in her pajamas like,
with that
Remember
guy. She's like
pouring
being
the
held
wine?
hostage by that guy who's like trying to tell her like the life story. And she's like, okay, night's over.
But I loved that also that was like exerting a boundary. Like they do have these little moments of healthy behaviors. I also think a component of it, I don't relate to the mean girl thing, but I have definitely known those people. And we certainly have clients who go through this in their friendships. I mean, it's common, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was interesting, the idea of friends that are formed, because I'm someone who's friends with and keeps in touch with people from early in my life. And our personality can be so the same, but some of your friends maybe are people that you wouldn't necessarily become friends with today.
Yes.
You know, it was born of the shared experience, which is a huge part of how friendships form. You're in the same school, you live in the same dorm, right? These shared experiences. And now in adulthood, we really pick more, who do we connect with? At least if you're not out for superficial friendships. Like, I don't want to be friends with you because you go to the same country club. I want to be friends, and I don't even go to a country club. I want to be friends with you because you might have nothing in common with me, but like, I like how you are. I like who you are. I enjoy my conversation with you. I feel connected to you. There are certain things we might be interested in, we can talk about. So to me, these characters also are people who would never form a friendship now.
Right. And I love how like Kate has gone to Texas and become like clearly like
A
influenced
Republican.
by the Republican country club set.
Yeah.
And her friends are just like looking at her sideways.
Yeah.
They do not have relatable lives.
No,
Like
at
where
all.
do you see these three headed? What do you see? Like, do you see like a climax moment in this?
I think it's very possible. They don't like each other. They don't. It's not even really, oh, we're close friends and we have little competitive streaks. They don't like each other.
And they're not like particularly relevant to each other. Like, especially like,
No.
Lori's like going through this, she's an attorney in New York City. She's paying like palimony to her ex-husband. I mean, she does not relate to these women.
No.
Yeah.
No, she's developed herself in ways that they haven't. She has more substance just as a character, more gravitas.
She might have an alcohol use disorder.
Yes, I think so. I think she does have a drinking problem. Yeah, I mean, substance use may be situationally induced. I mean, I had that during my divorce too. And I'm not an alcoholic, but I definitely acted like an alcoholic and drank like an alcoholic during my divorce at phases. So I think that's very relatable also. But I think even before Jacqueline stole her man, I think Lori doesn't have any respect for either of the other characters fundamentally.
Yeah, and it's a great point, but it doesn't stop the two of them from making her feel like shit.
Right. Because at the end of the day, mean girl behavior hurts, even when you're in your 50s, your 40s, it hurts. Being excluded hurts, being gossiped about. I mean, I have had things like that happen where I wasn't included or invited, or someone, I'm thinking of a couple things where someone made comments to me in front of other people that like were very thinly veiled put downs.
Ugh, that's really gross.
And it's really painful. Even if you know in your mind, who cares? I don't need this person. I don't want a friend like that. We're still human, and it's painful.
Do you think on Jacqueline's part that the whole thing is conscious? Like her sort of like throwing Valentine at Lori. Do you think that's a conscious realization? Like at the really, I'm going to bag him at some moment.
I could see it going either way. My take on the way it unfolded on the show was that, Jacqueline probably was to some degree fine with it if Lori was with Valentine. I've heard his name pronounced every which way. But once her husband wasn't calling her back, and she knows what that means. I mean, my phone wasn't charged for a week. Come on. And her husband's younger. And of course, anytime a couple publicly proclaims out the wazoo how in love and perfect they are, their relationship sucks. right? It's that whole thou doth protest too much. Oh, my young husband will never get sick of each other sexually. We're like so into each other, right? Which was such a
Like the death
nasty,
knell, right?
yeah. And also it's such a rubbing salt in the wound thing to say to someone going through a divorce, and
Right.
so tone deaf.
Tone deaf.
But I think when she realizes, wow, my husband is blowing me off, he's totally bagging some hot little young actress.
She's like, I'm
Then-
going to get mine right now.
Exactly. And then the needs of her ego trump friendship, and she just doesn't care. You know, I don't know that she went into, if the husband was paying attention to her, I don't know that she would have interfered, but I still think she could have on the dance floor if it was feeling good. And
did you notice the moment where Jacqueline's like grinding with the Russians
and looking at the girls
and looking at the women? And that is just like gassing her up. Like she just is loving. And I think this is really important to talk about in female friendships, or just female aggressive behavior.
Yes.
Is that to get another girl or woman fixated on you, like jealously, in a jealous way, for some women is like the greatest high of all highs.
I am so happy that I don't have 1 ounce of that in me. I am not competitive with other women at all. I have an abundance mindset. Well, that's why we're friends.
I know.
Because I literally cannot lose respect faster for someone than when they're like that. Not only do I have an abundance mindset, and it's part of it, I have such wonderful female friends. I love them. I want them to succeed. I'm not mad at them when they have something I don't have, or that even if it's something I want, I can be jealous or envious, but it's that whole way of saying, okay, that shows me what I want in life.
Right.
I don't resent the other person. So I just don't love the cattiness, but you're right. There are women who are like that. And there are even women who their whole thing they get off on is taking other women's men. I know. I can think of 2 examples.
Which is, I mean, that's such a like underdeveloped woman who is like so hooked on male attention for their own validation. And like what we were saying in the beginning, like that insecurity of like, I just need to grab male attention and I'll get it. Yeah. I'll get it from anywhere I can get it from, whether it's your man or her man.
Yep, exactly. And then on top of it, someone like Jacqueline wanting to see the women jealous of her and to dominate, to show these women who are younger, like, I'm the one that these men want, not you. Yeah. That's her source. That's her supply. That's her source of power.
So so just a note on these 3 friends, like I can see this artistically, like them wheeling their suitcase to the airport and like being exhausted and being like, never again, like done.
Oh, I think that's in real life. That's exactly what would happen. We'll have to see what Mike White has decided. It would be super interesting if one of them ended up being the one who dies. That would actually be interesting to me. I don't know why. How about Jacqueline? I could not abhor her more.
Well, she deserves, if one of them deserves to be offed, it might be her. Crimes against other women.
Yeah, and I just couldn't, like, I would have loved to see a little more interaction with them and the Ratcliffes, like the boys.
Yeah. Maybe we will.
Saxon.
Maybe Saxon will regain his manhood with one of them.
Yeah. Maybe Saxon will like sexually assault a woman in like a really bad attempt to a really horrible, deviant attempt to like reassert his masculine dominance.
Let's hope it doesn't go down that road.
I know. I'm rewriting the show. But okay, so let's touch on Amy Lou
Wood. And I've got to say, she might be my favorite character. Her name is Chelsea. Okay. I love her.
And then because Chloe.
Yeah. I love them. Some of the conversations they've had have been priceless. Like when Chloe looks at Chelsea and says, like, you can't save your life rescuing. You can't, rescue a man. You're going to ruin your life. I was like, yes. But I love Chelsea and those teeth.
Me too.
And she's so like emotionally honest at points.
Yeah, she is the narrator, like the normal, healthy view on the show, I think.
Even though she's got her own like vulnerabilities, obviously she's following Rick around and she's like gotten bitten by a snake and the whole thing.
Yeah, but
like,
I think she really loves him.
She does.
And I think she has a groundedness. I mean, to me, one of the most powerful moments was when Saxon said, why couldn't I get you to hook up with me? And she said, because it would be empty. You're soulless. You have no soul. And he was shook. Now, of course, there's more to it than just that. But, I felt like for a minute he didn't know what to make of that. And it's true. She speaks the truth.
And not in a mean way. I mean, she's not overly aggressive about it. No. She's just sort of like gentle, in a gentle honesty. Like even the scene where she pulls Rick to the front of the boat and she's like, look, like I'm going to leave if you don't tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then he like opens up to her. It's like she's able to get to like authenticity in a way that so many of the characters can't.
Yeah. And I think even Chloe can do some of that, although Chloe is more calculated and she's like, look, this is a good situation. I'm not leaving. She's somebody who's practical. She's a hustler. She's going to figure it out. I thought it was a little naive and ridiculous that she actually thinks the killer guy from last season, it's so bad that I don't know anyone's name, but that he actually wants. Yes. Is that it? Greg, who killed?
Name is Greg.
Okay.
Gary. It's Gary.
Gary. Yes. Gary. Good call. I couldn't believe she actually thinks Gary, this billionaire murderer, maybe she doesn't know the murderer, but that he wants her to bring the guy she hooked up with back to the party. I mean, come on.
But do you think that's what makes that guy tick?
No. I don't. I don't
think he could give a crap.
Oh, I do.
Or are we back to dominance?
Yeah, I think it's still, even if I don't care about Chloe's still my possession, and you just came and used my toy, peed on my pole. I don't think he's going to like that, but I think he has who knows what the motive is, but he has some reason for this. I could see him doing something to Saxon.
I think it's all a bit of subterfuge just to get Belinda, the character who knows his identity, back on the boat.
Maybe.
Or to the house.
But what's the necessity of being bring the guy you hooked up with? Invite other people, have the hotel concierge. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe he just wants a group. I don't know.
Right, but then why have the guy that your girlfriend screwed?
He's gonna flex on him somehow. We just don't know how.
Maybe it'll be subtle, maybe it'll be extreme. I don't know, but I don't think he's just oh, cool, no big deal. That's hot.
Yeah.
Bring him over. And then, do we think that he's gonna harm Belinda, or is she gonna continue on for seasons to come or pop up again? Is she like the Jennifer Coolidge and this is her second?
I sure hope he doesn't hurt Belinda. I love Belinda. I love Belinda's son. I think that they're again, another healthy point on the show.
Another moral center.
Yeah. A moral center. And I would hate to see her be collateral damage out of all of the people that could be collateral damage.
I agree. And I feel like she won't be. I think that would be so upsetting to the audience because she's one of the few people like.
I do think there's going to be a twist we can't fathom. And I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If for any of you who are listening, if you have ideas of what you think the twist or what you think about what we're saying and you disagree, let us know. I'm dying to hear. I want to talk about this with everyone.
I want to talk about it with everyone too. I want to hear everybody's thoughts. My husband loves Rick. Oh, and you know what we didn't even talk about is Frank, Sam Rockwell's monologue.
What'd you think?
My God. I loved it. I loved it. It was so dark, but it was even more exciting to see Rick's face. And to see him finally, for one moment, get out of his own victim navel gazing and go, holy shit, maybe other people are more fucked up than I am.
His face was priceless.
Priceless. He's like, you're kidding, right? You got to be kidding. And then he was like, whoa, it made some space because he's in tunnel vision with this idea that he's going to off the man, that killed his father.
Which I find so not believable.
Yeah.
I find it so not believable.
No,
that whole storyline. It feels contrived to me.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. Well, I'm not into it. I loved the monologue scene to a degree. I think it went on a little long for me. And sometimes I feel like we're just trying to do shock value to do shock value.
Although, I don't know, man. I've heard stuff like this. Like, I've heard things like this. It's not like this doesn't exist in the world.
No, I'm not saying that, but I've heard that stuff too. But when you pack it all into one episode and it's every crazy thing, just sometimes it feels a little gratuitous.
I'm here for it. I'm here for the gratuitous nature of the show.
Okay. I like the more character-driven dynamics.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see more of the human interplay. I don't love the forcing of this like crime drama part, or every character
He's trying to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
In this. Yeah. And that's, I think, the nature of it.
Right. Some people probably like some parts better, but I do think the character dynamics are fascinating, and I can't wait to see. We have 2 more episodes?
2 more episodes. They got to fit some stuff in here.
Yeah. So this Sunday at 9 will be the penultimate episode, and that will have aired by the time you guys are listening, which is crazy.
I wonder if we caught anything that might happen.
I know.
So far off base.
I'll be so curious to know. So please give us some feedback. Our email is info@insightsfromthecouch.org. And again, Laura and I put together a little download for you guys on playing off of White Lotus, power dynamics and toxic relationships, how to manage those kind of relationships, and how to break free. So check out our website, insightsfromthecouch.org, and resources section, and you'll find that and lots more stuff from previous episodes. So I can't wait to see what happens. And we're so grateful you guys joined us to talk about this today.
We all need to get together and have a White Lotus viewing party.
We should have a White Lotus finale party.
Totally.
We should. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's have a little viewing party. That would be so fun. Oh my God.
Look for invitations to our White Lotus viewing party.
So it's not this Sunday. It's next Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So perfect. After I've done my TEDx talk.
You'll be quite loose and ready to enjoy ultimate drama.
I'll be ready to act like Jacqueline on the dance floor or Lori in the pool. Woo!
Luckily, there's no pool around.
Yes, exactly. You have a pool. We'll come to your house.
Okay. We'll reenact the full moon party.
Oh my God, no, please. I think I'll settle for a glass of red wine and sitting on your couch. Yes.
Sounds awesome. Okay, guys.
Okay, you guys, thank you so much for listening. And as always, if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review or whatever review you think we deserve. It helps us get our word out to everybody else who might benefit from these episodes. And drop us a comment if there's something you want to hear more about on the show, a topic you think would be interesting. We love getting those. And if you have a particular question that you want us to answer, reach out. We're happy to do that. And otherwise, we will see you next week.